Good day, people. Today I'm going to be doing a study on the anterior view of the torso. So I'm going to be talking about the muscles and the shapes that make up the torso, and I'm going to be looking at references and just copying from that. Like I said, the way I actually do my studies is that I actually take references like from people that have actually done breakdowns of these parts, and then I then do my own. I then copy those things that they've drawn, and I do it over and over again. Copy those basic shapes, copy those basic muscles. I draw them over and over again in order for them to stick to my memory, and I kind of build like a muscle memory around drawing something like that, and then eventually I improve and it becomes second nature to me. So like we're going to talk about the muscles of the front, and then later on in another video I'm going to talk about the muscles of the back, and then eventually fuse them together. So in the previous video I did talk about one of the muscles of the front. So we're going to be looking at the pectoralis major, or the pecs. We're going to be looking at the abs, or the rectus abdominis. We're going to be looking at the serratus anterior, and we're going to be looking at the obliques, and we're going to be looking at the deltoid, and then the lats, because the lats usually show up from the front view. So these are the basic muscles and shapes that we're going to be looking at. You don't need to memorize them. Eventually, once you draw over and over again, you memorize them and they will just become part of you. So that's what I'm going to be doing in this video. That's the study and breakdown I'm going to be doing in this video. So whenever I do my studies, one thing I start with is that we're going to start with the pecs. Even though I've done a video on the pectoralis major, we're going to start with the pecs. I got this reference image. This is one of the cool ways that I like to study. So whenever I take something like this, what I do is that I kind of trace over it. I could trace over it to get the shape, and then I copy it. I usually do my breakdowns like this, and then I draw it to the side. So I just trace over the shape. So we're going to do that now. So this muscle over here is connected to the clavicle and the sternum, or like the collarbone and the chest bone, right? And it has sort of like a twist over here like this, and it's connected to the humerus bone. And this twist becomes normal whenever the arms is raised. Whenever there's like an adduction movement, like when the arms is raised like this, the muscle like doesn't twist anymore. It just becomes straight, because the muscle is going to be kind of like this. We'll just do studies and you see how it's important to look at it in this skeletal framework, because it's going to help you. Like it's just going to be very easy whenever you're drawing, and you're going to understand why. Whenever you look at the shape of the chest in a certain perspective, it just looks different. So we have our breakdown over here, shapes. So this is the neck over here, and then our torso. You could use a square. To represent the rib cage. One thing when I was young, one thing that helped me was that I used the skeleton shape a lot to draw. So something like this. I'll get the joints, and with a simple armature like this, I use this to draw whatever it is that I wanted to draw. So with this simple shape, of course, we'll just fix the details in later. So we're just trying to get the shape of the chest. So the thing about the pecs is that it's not really necessary whenever you're drawing the torso, but it's just kind of like an added information to have. Let's say we are drawing like a character transforming or something like that, and you have to like draw the details of these muscles. The pecs this is our thorax, our torso over here, like our upper, like let's say our upper torso, and this is where our chest is going to be, right? The deltoid muscle you usually see comes like this. So this is usually the deltoid muscle actually overlaps the pec muscle that we're looking at over here. it overlaps it like this, and that's how you get to see the other, like something like this. That's good enough for the front view. So we're going to do the side view. Just a note, whenever you're drawing the human body, like if you're looking at the neck is actually curved. It's not straight, right? It's actually curved. There's a curve to it like this, and then like this. I did a video about drawing the neck, so you can check that out. We're going to move to the three-quarter view. So I personally just use simple shapes like this. It could be circles, it could be ovals or whatever. But I just, like this, something like this could actually be a box. You could decide to, make it a box or whatever. But I'm just going to just use a simple square like this. And just the pec muscles is what's going on there is that how when you take like a bow tie, like, and a bow tie has a kind of like a twist to it, like it's kind of like a string like this, like with a bow tie. You have something like this with a bow tie, right? So what's happening is that the upper part of the muscle, right, that is the pec muscle, is actually coming down like this, that uppermost part, and then the lower part of the muscle is actually coming up like this, and that's what's causing that twist. What the hell am I doing? And that's what's causing that twist over here, like this. And then whenever it's stretched, this is what it looks like when it's at rest. And whenever it's stretched, it becomes normal, like this. So the next one we're looking at is what we're going to do is that we're going to do these drawings. We're going to do the studies of these different muscles, and then we're going to join everything we've learned together, and then actually draw. We're going to look at a real figure and then apply what we've drawn in that figure, like, so that there will kind of be breakdowns and stuff like that, and then we can, it will show. We'll see how effective the study has been. At least for me, that's how I study. So for our deltoid, one thing I've learned about kind of memorizing these names or these parts of the muscles is that you can just simply just do a quick Google search on the Latin words, like the etymology of the words, and figure out why they are called that. It's also going to help you kind of understand where they are placed and why they are placed the way they are placed on the body. So, for instance, now I think the deltoid, it's a Latin word for triangle, because the muscle kind of looks like a triangle if you actually look at it from this front view. It looks very much like a triangle. Obviously it's not a triangle, but that's where the word is coming from. So we have this muscle, and the deltoid muscle is broken down into three parts. We have the front delt, which is this guy over here. We have the side delt, which is this guy over here, and then we have the rear delt, which is this guy over here. So we have that breakdown, and then we're going to simply apply that to our drawing. And then you see how with our pectoralis, it's overlapping that little bow tie that we are supposed to have over our humerus like this. So that is one fun thing to note. That's kind of why whenever you see a real person's figure, you kind of see it's as if the chest is just fusing together with the delts, like this. And then there's this triangular spacing over a real person. Let me just show you a real figure. I should have a a real figure over here. Like, look at this dude over here, right? You look at the spacing, you see the spacing at his left, right? You look at his deltoid over here like this, right? And then you see that there's a spacing at this area, like this, in between his clavicle and his chest. So that's called deltopectoral groove, I think. That's the space. It's caused by the gap that is left about by all these bones and muscles intersecting into one. Yeah. So we're focusing on the deltoid, but the deltoid is very important. So just kind of have that in mind. We're doing this. I'm doing this tracing over this figure simply because it's kind of important for my muscle memory, so that whenever I'm drawing, in as much as I can draw what I see, this also helps as well. By the way, what do they call this muscle? Platysma muscle. Yeah, this guy over here. It's covering the sternocleidomastoid. Of course, we'll see our sternocleidomastoid coming down here like this. But this is kind of like a casing, this muscle over here. But we're not looking at that. This guy over here is our traps, and these are our clavicle. So we have that, and then with that shape we can then draw kind of like torso. We're going to move on to the abs, rectus abdominis. Something I just wanted to mention. Rectus, I believe, means straight. It can help you remember. And abdominis is around the abdomen. So the muscle around the abdomen. The rectus or muscle, which is rectus, around the body. So like around the quads, for instance, there's a muscle called the rectus femoris. So that muscle itself is straight, right? It's straight. So whenever you look at the muscle, it's just going to help you like deconstruct all these complex muscles and make it easier. So we're going to go to the side view of this. The next muscle we're going to move forward to is the serratus anterior, and you can see how it sort of looks from this angle. Serratus anterior. Serratus simply means saw-like. So you know how we have like a saw, or at least a manual saw. If you look at a manual saw, it kind of looks something like this. And then there is this stuff over here, and then handle over here like this for holding the saw. So that's where the serratus comes in. It's a saw-like muscle, and it could be 8, it could be 9. Like the muscle could be 8, like on each side, or 9, depending on a person. So it's covered by the chest. If you look at the chest actually overlaps it, and other muscle actually overlaps it. That's why it's not very visible. The same way like abs are visible. If there were a muscle above the abs, we have the abs. The same way the rectus abdominis is overlapping other muscles, and the obliques are overlapping other muscles. So we don't really need to memorize those muscles So that's the same way, like the this first parts, like this early parts of this serratus anterior, it's covered by the pecs, and even it's covered by both the major and the minor pecs. It's covered by both the major and the minor pecs. So even this area, for instance, is covered by the, what I call them, the obliques. What am I doing? Yeah, this area is covered by the obliques, like this, and then we'll have our, what's going on here? And then we'll have our abs over here, like this, and this is our obliques, and these are serratus anterior, and these are abs, and these are pecs, and our deltoid is going to be over here. This image didn't show the humerus, so you don't necessarily need to. So I personally don't necessarily need to memorize this, but I'm doing a study and I kind of want to see how it looks or how it works. So I'm just going to quickly do a quick sketch of the muscles. Now you can see how it looks like a saw, like from this angle when you're actually drawing it or actually trying to draw it. And that's why it's called the saw-like muscle, or some people actually call it it's called the boxer's muscle. Boxer's muscle, or the boxing muscle. But if you look at a lot of guys that box, or well, generally if you look at a lot of fit people, you actually see that they usually have this thing poking out. Let me show you an image. This guy is not ripped enough. Let me show you an image. Like, look at Mike Tyson. You can look at the sides of his right next to his obliques. You can see that rough edge around there. It's because he's not lean enough, but if he's lean enough, you'll be able to see some parts of the muscle. Like, look at this guy here. Yeah, this is a really good example. You can look at the sides of his muscles. You're seeing that edge, like that soreness, like this same triangular shape over and over again. Let me show you another image. Look at see Anthony Joshua. Look at the sides. He has really huge serratus anterior or boxer's muscle, and that muscle over here that just overlaps like this, that's his lats. His latissimus dorsi. And then whatever it's beyond this area like this, that stuff that is beyond this next area over here, just before his abs, that's his obliques. And the reason why I'm repeating this thing over and over again, it's kind of selfish because I'm kind of repeating it for myself, so I can keep remembering it, because repetition is what's going to make it stick to your head. And once you're looking at more examples like this, it's what's going to make you better and have these figures in your head the more. Let's look at this image over here. You can see how we have our, let me just quickly draw this over here, and then draw our pecs, which is stretching over from here. Because it's down, you can see how like it's twisted, right? It's twisted like this, and then like this, it's gone down, right? You can see how it's twisted. But if you look at the other one, the pecs on the other side, you can see how it's stretched. It's not twisted. because of the arm is adducting. I think that's the word. There's an adduction movement of the arm. It's lifted up a bit like this. Then you can divide this into the top, middle and bottom, and then have the serratus anterior. I'm just going to use dark blue line. Like when you're looking at the muscle, you see probably like 6 or 7. So it's going like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We have 5 over here. Over here, the lats actually then and with that it's kind of easily broken down the torso. I'm just going to quickly color this over here before we get back to we're looking at the traps, because I know it's not necessarily part of the front torso which we're dealing with, but it's important because when you actually look at a person like from the front view, and you look at their neck, the muscles of their neck, and their shoulders, you see that the traps actually make fair decent amount of it. So let's look at like this guy now, for instance, in this pose. But look at his delts here. You look at this part of his neck. This over here is his traps, and because it's a big muscle, even though it will have its overlap from the back view, it's still showing at this is neck and this is face. So it's still kind of important to study it and know how it works. I mean, you can do it on your own time, like personally if you want, but like it's just part of the front torso and it's visible, so we're studying it. With our bases being laid out like this, the next thing we're going to do ideally would be to, like, each of these parts of the torso, we'll try and identify them using a realistic photo or real photo, because whenever we're doing figure drawing and you're looking for references, a lot of the times the references are going to be taken from real photos or 3D pose references, things like that. So it's when you are doing the study, after you've done the fundamental breakdown like this, it is very nice to take out those references and then begin to break those parts down. You could use colors and stuff like that to break those parts down so that it's going to be simplified for your brain. And that's what I'm going to do here in the next phase. So over here I did try to put different angles so that I can actually, and different positions, so that I can actually kind of tackle the muscles and shape in different positions and angles, so that I can then use that to replicate the pose over here. The serratus anterior. Remember the serratus anterior, I talked about it like it's a saw-like muscle, and it's like kind of like there's like when I say 8 pairs on each side of the rib cage, and because they are supposed to actually be like this, like this, right? But because we have our pecs, and other parts of the body covering it, it's not going to be visible. So we're just going to have this guy over here. So it's just 3 that is visible on his body. In most people it could be more, but we have 3 here. And then the next thing is our obliques. We're going to look at is our abs, rectus abdominis. I'm showing you how I'm doing this live, so that whenever you're doing your own studies and breakdowns, you know that it actually takes time. It's not something that you just snap your fingers and you become good at. It actually takes time to do these studies and actually get good at them. So over here we have our lats. This guy over here, that's our lats. Even though it's a back muscle majorly, it is still, that's why it was kind of like you still have to do it from the back and like see how it looks, so that you can understand how it works and how it comes into it. Because if you look at it from like the back view, like the back muscle, you see that it actually goes from the back, it wraps around some parts of the rib cage, and then it comes in front of like the humerus bone. So it's not just our pectoralis major that is connected to the humerus bone, it is also our latissimus dorsi. Yeah. And then lastly we have our traps over here. That's a disgusting looking color, by the way. I actually like what I did here. So instead of like sketching it over here again, I'm just going to duplicate like this kind of effect over this guy, and lastly this guy, so that we can have 3 bases in which we can work with. And I think that will be fun. That's this for now. The next thing we're going to do is that we're going to take different reference images like this, of like different poses like this one and this one, and we're actually going to do studies of them with this foundational knowledge we have here, and these parts that we've broken down, we're going to do some studies on them and break them down, so that we can we're going to just break them down, like not break them down structurally the way we did here. We're just going to like just draw normally. We're just going to do a normal drawing. But since we've done this study and this breakdown, the knowledge is going to kind of be in our head, and it's going to help us draw better and like kind of understand how the muscles are actually working around the front torso. And once we're done with that study, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the back torso. So yeah, that's it for now.